Here are all of the things off the top of my head for today that are all the principles I wish I knew when I was in college that would have really helped me. I took 3.5 years to learn them, and I'm sharing all of them with you so that you can literally copy them before you either start school or before you start this new semester coming up in January. So, the very first thing is that the drop is easy, but going up is extremely hard. And when I say this, I specifically am talking about grades. So when you're in college, assuming that you like are preparing for college and you've already been in high school, basically what happens is you are given things to do in a class, and those things will equal what you get for a grade. So a class is based off 100%. So every single class, regardless of what class you take, it is going to be based off of 100%. Now you're going to have assignments, exams, and homework. Normally are the three criteria, but there might be like presentations, there might be other things, but normally those three things, and those comprise what your percentage is. So let's give a better example, right? Because I didn't know any of this before going to college, and this would have been so helpful to know. Okay, so let's just say the class is worth 100%, right? As every class is, because it's one whole, and you are going to have, let's just make it easy, do easy math, 5 things. So you have your exams, and then you have, let's just say, pop quizzes, you have your homework, presentations, and then you have like a extra credit portion or something. And each one of those sections is worth 20%. So that's going to equal up to the 100%. Okay. So when you're in college, it's not going to work like that. Your exams are normally going to be like 40 to 50% of the class, presentations maybe 20%, homework 10 to 15%, depending on what class you're taking. It's all going to differ, but right. So you're going to have those things that break up the 100%. And then on top of that, you're going to have those broken down even more. So you might have 5 exams that are all worth 4%, and those 5 exams times the 4% equals the 20% for overall exams. So if you see what I'm doing here, and so what I'm trying to explain is that you're going to have many opportunities to have good grades. You're going to have um, you're going to have a few chances to have good grades. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this later as well, but not everything in college is just take an exam, get an A, take an exam, get a B, take an exam, get an F and fail, right? That's not how it works. Everything is made out of other grades. So just because you get an F on one exam does not mean that you will not be able to at least get a percentage that's helpful in another way, right? So if you get an F on an exam, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to fail the class. What it means is that 20%, right, the exams that are worth 20%, you're probably not going to get all 20% of those, right? So that's going to hurt your overall grade. That's what it's called. It's called an overall grade. So the overall grade is out of 100, and the lesser amount percentages you have along the way, the harder it is to reach up to that 100%, right? So let's just say from all five categories, you end up doing well in all of them, but there's one category where you get like 10% out of the 20 that you need. So you fail 2 exams, you pass 2 exams, and you end up with 10% of your exam percentage, and you lose the other 10% because of the other grades that you had. Okay. So when this happens, you can really feel discouraged, but you have to remember there are 4 other sections that are worth the other 80% of the class. So if you're not well, wrong brush. If you're not good at if you're not that good at exams, but you're really good at pop quizzes, or you're not that good at pop quizzes, but you're really great at presentations, or you're really not that good at presentations, but you're really great at homework, right? So there's many different ways, and you also need to know your strengths. So before you get into school, before you start classes this semester, really look at yourself. And these things are listed out on the syllabus as well. So the syllabus is basically a document that lists all your assignments, literally week by week. Most semesters are like what, like 20 to 30 weeks or something like that. So you're gonna have week by week by week by week what's going to be taught, and then what exam is going to be taught, or what exam you're going to have to take based on that information. It's all going to be in like a chronological order. And so what you can do before you start school is actually go look at the syllabus, say, okay, I see that presentations were 20% of my grade, but I'm really, 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 really not that good at presentations. What you would say in that instance is you would say, okay, I'm actually going to make sure to focus on my exams instead, because I know I'm probably not going to get all my percentage. I'm probably not going to get all my points in this presentation area because I'm not good at presentations, but I'm really, really good at homework. So let me make sure I do that. Or whatever the case may be, right? For me personally, I'm really great at exams. I love tests. I love tests. I don't know what it is, but I love tests. I love exams. I love pop quizzes. I am so with presentations. Like, I love to speak. That's why I have a whole YouTube channel where I talk my head off for hours every single week, because I love speaking. So that's pretty fun. Some of the things that mess me up is like homework. Homework never really was my favorite thing. I prefer exams. I prefer studying and taking exams. If the entire course could just be studying and taking exams, I mean, that's literally exactly what I would want. But you have to look at it from the lens of like, know your strengths, know your weaknesses before you get into class. But the original point was that the drop is easy and getting up is harder. And what I mean by that is when you, let's just say, again, with the same example, that a class has 5 different sections, each work 20%, or it can also be said like it's a 100-point system, and each of those sections, those 5 sections, are all 20 points. So it can also be a point system, but it's the same thing as percentages. So you can always convert all these points into percentages if you want to calculate your grade that way. Or you can find a grade calculator online. You can also just use that. So you can input your grades into a pre-made calculator for grades, and you can do that as well. But when your grades drop or you lose a lot of your percentage, it's really hard to get it back up. And so my advice to you is to start strong, stay strong, and end strong. When you put in your mind that, oh, well, it's 5 different sections and each one of the sections is 20%, but as long as I get 15% in all sections, I basically pass the class, right? But what that does is it sets your brain, if you start thinking like that in the beginning, it sets your brain up to not try. It sets your brain up that you have a safety net. And in college, you do not have a safety net, especially if you're a person on scholarship. I personally never paid for tuition, so I don't know how that works in aspects of like how your psychology could be if you're actually paying to be there. I don't know the psychology behind that because I've never had to pay to go to school. Um, but when you are thinking about thinking about going to college and you're actually in college, you have to pay really close attention to these things. Okay. So I want you to have this in your head. Start strong, stay strong, and finish strong. And I would even say start the class with a lot of energy. Start the class with a lot of drive, because it's easier to have it in the beginning when you're like, this is a new class, this is that. But I promise you, if you really stay on your game at the beginning of the semester, you are so much more likely to get a better grade at the end of the class. And not just because of the percentages, but also just the mindset. If you start strong and you tell yourself and you really get it into your head that you need to stay strong and you need to start strong and you have to um, make this thing work for you, it will. I promise you. So stay strong in the beginning and make sure that paying you're paying attention, because if you don't pay attention to your percentages, you're likely to flunk out, and that's what you don't want, because flunking is really hard as well, because again, college is not made up out of one class or two classes. It's made out of so many different classes, so many different credits, so many different assignments that break down into so many different points, right? And on a point system, or so many different percentages on a percentage scale. So if you fail a class, you're now not just affecting that class, but you're affecting your overall GPA because of the credits you need to graduate, and it can make you stay longer. When I started college, I entered with almost a year of credits, like a whole year of college credits. So I got to skip a lot of the classes that a lot of people were taking. I never took an English class in real college because I didn't have to, because I already had all my credits. I didn't have to take any. I had one history class left. Um, and I also had a minor, and my degree was in chemistry. So there's so many things that you really do have to pay attention to. And I'm going to tell you this now, there's nothing better than starting a semester really, really strong, doing your best to stay strong and to hold on to that momentum, right? Because your momentum is going to fall. So if you start at 100% and you like energy wise, you start at 100%, even if you try your best, it's still going to fall by the half point of the semester, by the midpoint, right? Your midterms, your mid exams. By that time, you are going to be maybe at 75%, even if you try so hard. So it's important to start strong, because you're going to naturally fall. That's how it works, right? Your energy is naturally going to fall. You're naturally going to be tired. You're naturally going to feel more worn out as the semester goes. So it's important to start strong. But there's nothing better than trying your best at the beginning, continuing to try your best in the middle, and then when you get to the end, you realize that you could literally fail the exam and still get an A. There's nothing better than that. And it also motivates you to to one, not fail the exam, right? But most of the time, there are incentives, right? So your professor will say, okay, anybody who has an A average in the class before finals doesn't have to take the exam, right? And I'm going to talk about this later too, where nothing in college is black or white. Everything, everything is gray area. Everything. Don't let anybody tell you anything other than that. Nobody's going to tell you this. I found this out the hard way. You think it's so strict and so concise. Everything is negotiable in college, okay? Everything, everything, okay? So yeah, there's nothing better than that. So there's nothing better than getting to the end of a class and realizing you can literally fail the exam, never turn in any more homework, never show up again, and still get an A. There's nothing better than that. But also ask your teacher if they would do, or ask your professor if they'll do an incentive for students. Normally, the professor will just say it, right? Because it's a common thing. They'll just say that if they're a person that would do that, they're just gonna say it and offer the incentive. But you can always ask again. Nothing is off limits in college, um, because professors are people, and people are fleeting. People are um, people. So you can still communicate with your professor as if they're a person, right? Because they are people. So it's not that big of a deal. The next thing I want to talk about is the goal, which is your degree, is a series of ups and downs. So when you think about college, and when I look hindsight, right? Um, when I look hindsight, I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, if I were to think about the fact that I started school, 3.5 years later, I graduated. Seems like, you know, everything kind of just brushes over. Everything kind of just melts together. But when I genuinely think about it, it was a lot of ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs. And I never let those down seasons get me out of whack. Um, I'm writing down something else to mention because this is important. But I never let those things get me out of whack. So if I didn't do well on an exam or I didn't feel confident in a certain class, um, if I didn't if I didn't have the best professor one semester and I feel like that really messed me up or something like that, I had to understand, okay, it's not just the fact of going up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down, right? Well, I mean, it's not the fact of like everything has to be good and you get the degree, right? I start here and then I do all these things and I get the degree. No, it's not just going to be one way. It's going to be like, okay, I did great in this class, but then I failed this exam. And but I found out that I can do this and do extra credit. Okay, great. Now I'm on the rise. And now, okay, my professor's really, really bad. Maybe their English is bad, or maybe their syllabus didn't really clearly specify anything, or they're really lazy or whatever. So that makes me feel a little bit more like, oh, this is hard. And my credits, like I have the right amount of credits, but this is kind of getting hard. And then you go up a little bit and you're like, okay, I'm halfway through. Like, oh my gosh, I only have a few credits left. Okay, cool. And I'm signing up for graduation. And oh my gosh, I failed this class and I failed this exam. Maybe am I gonna pass with enough credits? And then you literally are just gonna go like literally teeter like here. Like you're gonna teeter, go up, down, up, down, up, up. Like literally, you're gonna start here, then you're gonna start moving up, and then you're gonna go down, go up, down, all the way down, up. Like it's literally gonna be a series of ups and downs. So when you inquire, or not inquire, when you acquire your first failing grade, don't be so hard on yourself, first of all, because one, nobody cares. Your professor doesn't care. Your friends don't care. Your professor is there to get money. I promise you, if your professor could live their life without being a professor and they could just sit on a beach in the Maldives, they would. They are not there caring about what grade you get. They don't get, well, that's not true. Some teachers actually do get penalized financially um, from the grades students get, especially in high school. When I was in high school and middle school, that was a thing. Teachers would get paid more or less based on grades that students got. Or maybe that was just a rumor that went around because obviously I'm not a teacher, but that's what was going around when I was younger. Maybe that was even just something being played with in my county, and that's not a thing anymore. I don't know. But the rest of the stuff I do know because I am indeed a graduate of college, so I can at least speak on those things truthfully. So it's just going to be a series of ups and downs, and really the goal, which is a degree, is the average of all of these ups and downs. So you don't want to just focus on, okay, I need to get A's on every test. I need to get this on every test. I need to get that. Like, don't make the idea so big in your head of all the things you need to do, because I promise you, you're going to fail an exam. You're going to um, get a 78 instead of a 79. You're going to get a 92 instead of a 94. And even for people like me that are really great technically, they're really good analytical wise, logical wise, really, really great with mathematics, science, really, really great with all those type of things. Even for people like me, I'm not just gonna get all A's all the way through. That's not a thing. It's a myth. And I'm so happy that I was part of the smart part of every class that I was in. So there's like always gonna be this hierarchy in class. Same thing with high school, really. In high school, you have like honors classes and non-honors classes. But even within those classes, there's like smart people, and then there's like slackers, then there's like jokesters, and then you like within everything, there's going to be both sections. So even if you're not taking honors college classes, there's still going to be a section of class that are the smarter people. There's always going to be the lazy people. There's always going to be the talkative people. There's always going to be the this. So there's always going to be that, regardless if you're in honors or not. So it's important that you understand that and be part. I'm happy that I was part of the smart people that sat in front of the class who raised their hand every second, even if the answer was right or wrong. That's one thing I would definitely say is like, Even if you think the answer is wrong, raise your hand. You know why? Because your anxiety with thinking the answer is wrong is what's going to help you to understand what the answer is right. And there's so many people that don't raise their hand and they let anxiety close them in. But the more you raise your hand and just give a random answer, the more your professor, one, sees you, but also two, the more confidence you have to actually find the right answer. And again, like I said, your professor literally doesn't care. They're there to make money. If they could live without being a professor, they would. Okay. The same way that like your other friends are there to get a degree, because if they could just be rich and never have to have a job and never need this degree, they wouldn't be getting it. Right. So they're not there for you and they don't really care, you know, about you specifically. Everybody's there with their own motives to do well in school, right? And just your teachers are there just doing their job. So don't think about it such in a way where you're just like so tied up in like, I need to look a certain way, I need to be a certain way. Like you can literally just do these three things and you will be the top of your class. You answer questions when questions are asked. You were the first to raise your hand or the second person to raise your hand, but you answer every question. You sit in the front of the class and you come to class prepared. Or actually, it might be a few things. Come to class prepared, and then you look good in class. Do those four things, and I promise you, life is going to be a piece of cake. Why? Because those four things categorize you in the group of people that actually care about the class. And it's even better because your professor, I'm going to be honest, they don't care about you as a person because they're there to get a check. Okay. They can love the subject they're teaching, whatever, whatever. But at the end of the day, they're there because they need to feed their families and they need to have food in their fridge. So if you can help them look beyond that fact, you're going to be their favorite, right? So if you go to class and you do those four things that I just said, they're going to say, oh my gosh, this person actually cares about this class, they're putting in so much effort, and it makes them feel a purpose as a professor. They don't feel, because it's really easy for a professor to feel like, oh, these students are just here because they're here to get a grade, but most of them are lazy and this and that. Like if a professor can see that all the energy they're investing into you is like literally working, they're gonna like you more than everybody else. For one, but also you get the advantages of being in that part of class who gets all the advantages, right? All the smart people in class are like the pets, the teachers' pets or whatever, get all the advantages. I was always a teacher's pet all the way through school. Even in high school, I would put my chair right next to the professor and I would sit there and I would talk to the professor and I would get to know the professor. The teacher would share snacks with me and I would literally be that person. Why? Because I knew that is what it took to get the inside information to pass every class. And that is how I did so well in high school, to literally not have to pay any tuition whatsoever. I only was able to not pay tuition because of my grades in college, and I graduated cum laude. That's the literal only reason, because I didn't have any intention on applying for scholarships. I'm also a person that's like, if you watch my other videos, you know I'm a lazy person. Like I'm just a girl that likes her makeup and her hair, her earrings, nails, and I'm lazy beyond that, right? But because I'm lazy, I'm like, I don't want to sit and apply for 35,000 different scholarships. That sounds like a waste of my time. I would much rather do the concrete option. I've talked about this before on my channel. The concrete option is normally the laziest, easiest way. But people are so tied up in wanting to do the hard work because they don't want to be seen as lazy. They don't want to be seen as this and that. So they say, okay, I'm going to go apply for all these scholarships. It works for a lot of people. There are a lot of people that I've seen on TikTok who have done really well by themselves by the degree that they got because of their ability to get a scholarship. Me, I don't know. No, I'm not doing it. Like I'm just not. And God designed me as a person that way because I wasn't supposed to be doing what everybody else is doing. Everybody else is going online, typing up on Google scholarships, and they're applying for 1,000 of them. I was supposed to focus on high school. I was made to focus on my high school grades that would completely take care of every tuition. That's what I was supposed to do. And I did what I was supposed to do, right? So the calling on your education from God is not going to be what it is for everybody else. I would never even, I'm going to be honest, is there a bobby pin in my head, girl? What? I would never um, from wrapping my hair. I would never recommend somebody to go spend all that time doing scholarships. I would say focus on your high school work. Get free college while you're in high school. That's what you need to be focused on. Taking college classes and getting grades good enough to not have to pay any tuition, because that is literally the goal. That's the easiest way to get into college and not have to pay any money. But going back to the original point, which was um, the degree is going to be a series of ups and downs, and don't give up when it gets hard. And again, like, this is another part of school I didn't know existed, was weed out classes. Weed out classes sound like what they are. Weed out. Like WEEDOUT. So it weeds out students that aren't serious, that don't want to work hard, that don't do this, that don't do that. Organic chemistry is normally a weed out class, right? So that's what makes people drop their majors. That's what a weed out class is. It's like, get all the people that aren't going to make it through this degree, get them out of here, right? Get these people out of here. And then once your weed out classes are normally going to be your second semester of your first year and the first semester of your second year, possibly your second semester of your second year. And between those 3 semesters, there are going to be classes where you see people drop their major, change their major, drop out of school, all these crazy things, because these weed out courses are made to do that. They're made to show who's actually going to make it through. And so don't let weed out classes bother you. I let organic chemistry bother me because it was supposed to, right? I was told it was a weed out class. And so I approached it like it's supposed to be hard, and like it was going to weed me out of my degree. And then I would have to change my major, or I would have to drop out of school. That's the point. Like, the point is to have that dangerous rhetoric. But what's so important is that you don't focus on weed out classes, and you just take all your class, you just see them as regular classes, and that will really, really help you. Um, so on top of that, um, you have to stop focusing on just getting A's and focus on staying in the range of what you want. So the range is technically going to be like an A average. So an A average is, depending on your school, it's going to be like a 90 to 100, right? Those 10 points is going to be 90 to 100. So that's what's really important. What you need to focus on is not just getting all 100s, all 98s, all 99s, and focus on just staying in the range, right? Stay in the range of what you need to graduate with honors, or with whatever you're trying to graduate, cum laude, whatever. The next thing, so the third thing that is a principle of something I learned in school, that I wish I knew, is that people notice. Students, professors, advisors alike. Everyone notices who invests in themselves, and those are the people they want to invest in. Nobody is going to give you a pushback on your exam date. Nobody's going to give you makeup work. Nobody's going to extend your exam date, or give you extra credit. Nobody's going to do any of that, right? Your friends aren't going to help you study. Your friends aren't going to give you the answers, or help you get the answers, or teach you how to do something that you don't know how to do. Nobody's going to do any of that if you don't focus on investing into yourself. And when I say that, is those are the 4 things I talked about: being in the front of the class, and raising your hand to answer every question, looking like you want to be there by putting on, if you're a girl, me, I always wear makeup, and I always did my hair. Why? Because I've always done that. I've been wearing makeup since 5th grade. That's who I am. That's what I've been doing. So I just continued that, and I didn't realize how much it would actually help me. It didn't help me much in high school because I don't really know. But it helped me a lot in college. When when people have their conscious mind on, and you're around a lot of older people, right? It's actually, and you have, obviously, in college you have more professors around than you do teachers, and it just really gets you attention as well. And yeah, so that's really important. But teachers will definitely invest into you, right? So with help on exams. I've had teachers that have been on, like, I'll just say, hey, can I get on a Zoom call? I really need help with this homework. And they'll literally get on a Zoom call with me at 9 o'clock at night, after they've taught all day, because they see that I'm literally trying. And it obviously is not in the rule book to go get on Zoom with a professor. But because I desire a certain type of grade that I got, That's what I did, and so I got what I wanted to get. The fourth thing is that nothing is concrete. Okay, so everyone says like everything's black and white. Right? The black and white part of college is that you go to college, you get the grades equal the credits that you get, and the credits equal up to the degree, and now you're qualified to get a degree. Cool. At an accredited college. The problem is that if you mix these black and white situations, what color does it make? It makes gray. Everything is gray. Everything is gray area. So if you're taking an exam or you're about to take an exam, but you don't feel prepared and you feel like, oh no, I need to take the exam because my professor said the date was December 12th. First of all, you can take an exam earlier or later. You don't have to have certain like I don't know what it's called, mental accommodations like for disability, for having, because if you go through the disability center of certain colleges you will get extended time on exam. So instead of it being an hour 30 for all the students, it'll be 2 or 3 hours for you. You get to take it on a separate day. You get to have certain accommodations depending on whatever learning disability that you may have. But talking about just in general, not just learning disabilities. I mean, regular students that aren't under that Disability Act, test grades, homework, getting help, extra credit, all of that. You can get all of that if you ask for it. Okay, so for me, this is not a good example, but what I did through college, when I found out that it wasn't all black and white, is I would go to my professor and I would literally talk to them about the issue I was having. I'm vulnerable about sharing the issue I'm having, and we would come to a conclusion. It's so easy to get wrapped up in your mind, like, oh, this is a professor and they're going to see me as weak. They're going to see me as this. They're going to see me as that. Do you want the grade or not? Because at the end of the day, when you go to apply for a job, you can't apply for no job that you need a degree for if you didn't get the degree. So it's more about the degree and less about what these people feel about you. And I mean, your professor can say no. They're like, oh no, I don't do that. Mm-mm. But I'm gonna tell you, if you answer questions in class and you show up to class on time, 15 minutes early is on time. Show up 15 minutes early. Okay. Also, before classes start, do your route of classes. So get like your schedule out and do a route of all your classes so you can see how much time it takes you to get to different buildings. So you're say you have building A, B, and C, and then you have classes at 1, 2, and 3 o'clock. You want to go to building A, see how long it takes you to get from building A to building B, and say, okay, it took me 15 minutes. I got to leave this class right when it ends because this class starts 15 minutes after this one. So I got to run. Okay. And then you're like, okay, how far is building B to C? And you're like, oh, this is like a 5-minute walk. And they're like, okay, cool. That means I can get lunch during this. Like it helps you to like see what your schedule is. But you have to literally invest in yourself. If you don't invest in yourself, don't expect your professors to do that. Don't be quiet. I've heard this from professors' mouths. Literally. Don't expect to be quiet in the back of the class, be antisocial, don't say anything, don't answer anything, never show up to class, or don't be a person that just kind of just skates their way through class and then expect that at the end of the semester that your professor is going to help you with your test grades and they're going to give you extra credit. It's not going to happen. Okay, so don't do that to yourself. The next thing is that most people tell themselves no. So if you tell yourself yes, you're probably going to get it. Okay. Most students have, I think most people in general, but this is why I'm sharing this, right? Because it's important that you think like this. Most people are going to tell themselves no before they even can tell themselves yes, right? So if you always tell yourself yes, you can, then you're more likely to get an opportunity. For instance, if let's go back to the example I just gave, right? Most people are going to say, no, I can't ask for an extension because my professor's not going to give it to me. How are you going to tell yourself they're not going to give it to you and you ain't ask? That's why I go ask, and the professor's like, oh, none of these people are asking me for help. None of these people are asking me to get on a Zoom. None of these students are trying to get in contact with me. None of them are coming to my office hours. Office hours are basically times where your professor isn't teaching and they're just sitting in their office and they have like 30 minutes or 1 hour where students can come in and ask questions while they're sitting in their office not teaching classes. This is called office hours. They're like, nobody comes to my office hours. Nobody asks for extra help. Nobody is really acting like they care. Because most students are telling themselves that they shouldn't. They're telling themselves that they shouldn't. They're telling themselves that they can't. Me, I'm gonna bring my laptop, my phone, a snack, everything, and I'm gonna sit in that office hour and I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna get help, right? But you have to be prepared. Again, go to class prepared. Look like you want to be there. Sit in the front of the class. Answer questions. That is going to get you in the door more than anything else. So most students, remember this. If you feel like you want to do something, this may even apply to, like, let's just say there's a new job on campus and or in your department, and they're like, hey, we're looking for students to work and do this certain thing. Most students are going to tell themselves, no, I don't have time, or they're going to say, no, I'm not qualified. I'm just a student. No, that sounds too hard. That's not going to work. I'm telling you. 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 If they're offering something to students, they already know the students aren't going to be amazing at it because students are students. They're offering it in with that in mind. People are not stupid, right? They're offering this thing in mind that you're a student. So why would you tell yourself no, you can't do it because you're a student? When they're literally offering it to students, they already know you're a student. They already know what you can do. Same thing with God. Like, if God puts something on your heart as a desire and you keep telling him, well, no, I'm just a this, or I just don't have this, or I don't know how to do that. Why would he put something on your heart that he's not going to allow you to do? He's not like, why would he put something on your heart that he's not going to equip you so that you can do it? Right? So you're telling God, no, I can't do it because I'm scared or because this isn't going to work out. And he's like, I'm literally putting this on your heart because I have already equipped you and I'm going to bring you through the journey. But you want to be hard headed? Fine. Like, cool. Right? He's not going to force you to do anything. It's important that you obey. So it's the same thing with school. You need to make sure that you don't are not telling yourself no when the people who are offering it have already understood who you are. God has already put he created you. He already knows what you're gonna think. He already knows what you're gonna do. He already knows who you are. So if he's putting it on your heart, he already has it in mind. So when you're in school, professors already know that you're a struggling student because they were in college. I can look hindsight on my undergrad education, right? And I could say, okay, I actually, like, told myself yes more times than I should have because I just was overly, like, taking every opportunity I could, and that actually helped me. Another thing that I wish I knew, the fifth thing, right? I think this is the fifth thing. One, two, three, four, five. This is six. The sixth thing I wish I knew is that you need to have a relationship with professors beyond relationship, right? Because if you have a relationship with a professor on a friendly level, just saying, hey, hi, friendly, they're not going to be able to write a recommendation for you, right? You need to have professors who you like and you're like chit chatting, kikiing with, right? But you also need to have professors that know you academically who can write recommendations for you years to come. Okay. And the best thing about it is once they write one recommendation, they already have one written and they're going to do it again if you need it. If you are applying for 50 jobs, there, maybe not 50, but if you're applying for 3, 4 jobs over, 2 years, they're going to be like, oh, I already have one written. Let me just submit what I have written. They're not going to keep rewriting it. I've had professors that have written probably like 10 recommendations for me at this point. Right. But it's important that you don't tell yourself no. Tell yourself yes. And also, if there's, like, let's just say there's an opportunity to work in the department, and right, again, they're already in the mindset that these are students, they're not going to be perfect. We're already, like, we're giving them an assignment that needs to be fulfilled, but we're not giving it to someone who needs a PhD because we know that someone that doesn't even have a degree can do it, right? That's what they're doing. And so if they have this opportunity with that in mind, and there's 10 students and 5 of them tell themselves no, that means, well, if there's 10 students and 5 of them tell themselves no, that means it's you and 4 other people that now have that chance. You just went from having a 1% chance of winning to whatever that other percent. What is that? 4 divided by, well, you just gave, I think that's a 20% now. So let's just, right. The math doesn't really matter. But let's just say you upped your chances by 5 times because 5 people decided they weren't going to do it. So think that in your head, even though you might not see it, that's what people are doing. So when you see an opportunity, just think to yourself and remind yourself, hey, half the people that got this email for this opportunity probably already told themselves no. Most people aren't going to apply for this. So I'm going to go ahead and do it because I know my chances are greater because people have already taken themselves out the game. People have already defaulted. People have already given up. People have already, what is it called? Like people have already, like, what is it called when you're playing the game and people are just like, I quit, or like you just win by landslide or whatever. Like people are just like going to take themselves out of the game. Like people are going to take themselves out. So you don't have to take yourself out because your chances get higher because people naturally are going to tell themselves no. And the seventh thing is your routine will determine your grades. And this is as far as studying. And if you seek out, like studying is really the foundation of college. And if through your entire college career, your intention and purpose is to seek out how to study the best, you are going to get a degree. If you focus on only getting A's, never failing exams, and you are so struck on the numbers, you're probably going to have a hard time in school. But if you constantly are focused on the process of learning to study, you've already earned your degree. Sorry, you've already done it. You just now have to get through all the class. You've already mentally got your degree because you're focused on the process, and being a process based person is the most important thing you can do. Stop focusing on just the A's, and sometimes it helps, right? So sometimes you need to be in the process mindset and focus on studying the best and finding the best routines and really modifying this thing that you're doing. But it's also important that sometimes you focus strictly on the class that you're in and you look at it deep within. So sometimes you have to do zoom out, sometimes you have to zoom in. It just depends. But overall, again, your routine is going to determine your grades. So the one thing that worked for me, right? Because I was always seeking out how to study the best. That was always on my mind. And zooming in to like really focus on certain classes only happens sometimes. Um, but yeah, it only happens sometimes because I only had to like really lock in the classes certain times. But for the most part, I was really process oriented. And one of the best processes I learned was this. And this is my own study thing. I might make a whole separate video on it. This is my own personal study blueprint. Prepare for the class by reading and practicing and exposing yourself to the information as much as you possibly can for as long as you possibly can, which means the sooner the better. Expose yourself to the information you're going to learn. Then when you actually get to class, actually, it's better because you have already heard the information. Now you can take all this like jumbled up, misunderstood vocab and all these different concepts, and it starts to make sense quicker because you've already exposed yourself. Then you go study vocabulary. Then you practice with testing. Now, me, again, I've already said it. I'm a really great test taker. I love tests. I love exams. That's who I am. Pop quizzes, sign me up. So you want to study in that same way. If you're really great with presentations, you need to be talking out your studying. You need to be talking when you're studying. Study in a presentation form. For me, studying in an exam form, which is studying the vocabulary. It's like a paradox, right? Because you're like taking an exam to study. But yes, you study the vocabulary, then you create a test based on all the study material, and you keep taking that test. And every time you don't understand a vocabulary word or you mess up on a problem because you don't understand a certain concept, you go and learn that concept or go learn the vocabulary word, come back, retake the test, and just keep doing that over and over and over and over and over. That's my favorite study habit. And the eighth thing is taking summer classes and taking advantage of the fact that everybody's going to go to Cancun, everybody's going on family vacations, everybody's going to take the summer off. If you lock in over the summer and you take 2 or 3 classes over the summer, you're going to be gone quicker than everybody else. And you know what? Some people figure that out too late. Some people get to the close to the end of their career and they're like, oh my gosh, I've been here for 4 years and I still haven't got all my credits. Then they want to take summer classes. No, when you first start your first year, you take one summer class, then you do more, you do more, you do more, you do more. And I would say take the easy classes that you can. Take the easiest summer classes you can, right? I think this is overall. Um, but normally in the summer it's a little bit more wiggle room because you're taking elective normally. Electives are essentially kind of like filler classes that aren't the core classes. So that's like electives are things that you can actually choose to take. So there's like a huge list of electives, and you can choose which ones you want to take. Like you can choose, all of them have the same amount of credits. However, for your core classes, those are things that are like required for your specific degree that you need to specifically take. So it really, really, really matters that you take advantage of that. I took summer classes, 2 or 3 summer classes, sometimes even 4 summer classes every single semester. And I also had a minor, so that was also like working towards that. But if I didn't have a minor, I probably would have graduated college in 2 years or 1.5 years because I have taken so many classes. I had so many, so many classes that I was taking. But also, um, when you're taking summer classes, take classes that actually matter to what you're going to be learning. So don't just take the easy ones that have nothing to do with your degree. Actually move towards your degree when you take those classes. So those are the 8 principles that I learned in college just off the top of my head. Obviously, I have like a million, but more videos will come. If you have questions, put them down below. Things I wish I learned in college, and I hope this video was super helpful for you.